Have you been following, though, the Palace intrigue? Because this is good, and perhaps not. But we have learned that the Raiders owner, Mark Davis, the guy that likes playing slot machines at the airport, Mark Davis would love to bring Jon Gruden back. Some saying even desperately wants to bring Jon Gruden back as his head coach. And there is a path for Jon Gruden to come back and be allowed back in the good graces of the NFL, even with all of those tawdry, naughty emails that upset all the wokesters, right? All the wokesters. So there's a catch, though. What is the catch? Well, here's where the conspiracy comes in. I'll get to it more in a sec. But Jon Gruden, in order to be allowed back as coach of the Raiders in Vegas again, would have to drop his litigation against the NFL for this to materialize. So let us discuss the question. What do you make of the reported path for Jon Gruden to get back with the Raiders? So I've got Jingle Balls, Iowa Farmer, and Meshuggah. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make an apple pie. Upset alert, at Thanksgiving, we had a pumpkin pie, we had an apple pie. And I ate more apple pie than pumpkin pie. And I'm not afraid to admit it. I normally am a pumpkin pie guy, but I went apple. I went big on the apple this year. The Big Apple. All right, now, first of all, there's a lot underneath the surface. In this story, to me, there's a lot as we microanalyze these things and psychoanalyze these things. This whole thing between the NFL and Jon Gruden got really ugly really fast. And we know the backstory that Roger Goodell and his minions, they did Jon Gruden dirty. They did, right? Those emails were leaked. It was an intentional leak to the NFL-friendly, if I remember, the Wall Street Journal, and I believe it was the New York Times, if I'm not mistaken. Those are two NFL-friendly publications for the league office. And I don't know for sure that happened, but my belief is it happened. I can believe anything I want. So Jon was sacked, if you've forgotten, for those naughty emails where he was emailing buddies of his for the Washington Redskins that contained the big three. The big three, a racist, misogynistic, and homophobic verbiage. And Brent Musburger, who I had, one of the great gets ever on my podcast a couple years ago, Brent Musburger, you're looking live. He said of the dismissal that it was a professional hit job by a paid assassin. That's what Musburger said of how the NFL did Jon Gruden. So it has been an open secret that the NFL encouraged strongly, some would say twisted Mark Davis's arm to make sure that Jon Gruden was whacked. The guillotine fell down on him. And the idea being floated that Chucky Boy is going to be allowed back, that he will be allowed back into the fraternal order of NFL coaches under the condition that he drops his lawsuit is intriguing. Because when you take the onion and you peel the onion back, right? You start peeling the onion back, this is a telltale sign. If true, the NFL is in the danger zone. The danger zone. Why? Because this would tell you, if they are willing to say, okay, you know what? We know you did the email thing, but it was a long time ago, and we'll clean up your reputation and all that. Jon Gruden must have them by the jingle balls. He must, right? He must be holding the jingle balls of the NFL. Lawyers for the league, they know whether or not they've got a winnable case. The NFL legal arm knows whether or not they've got enough, and then Jon Gruden can't win. And if they're going to be given the atomic wedgie by Jon Gruden in court, there's a lot of skeletons that are buried in that treasure trove of emails. And you talk about discovery in a legal proceeding, and the NFL, they know what's in those emails, right? You can do a simple search, type in bad words, different words that are offensive to polite society, and you can figure out that Jon Gruden, likely one of hundreds of big shots at the NFL that were fast and loose with the language, that if you said it outside, you might not might not be loved and all that. And so if they're willing to cut Gruden a deal, they're looking to limit liability. Now, the other part of this, which is crazy to think about, if you're Jon Gruden, you make the call. You're a lifetime football coach. You've lived your life. You were beloved, still beloved by a lot of people, but not by as many. Does your heart desire going back to that life coaching? Or do you want your final act in football to slay the dragon that is the NFL and get a ridiculous lottery-like payout from the NFL? Do you go for the jugular of big football? That's the question. It's an interesting question. We'll see what Jon Gruden decides to do. Now, secondly, headline from the boob tube where FS1 personality Craig Carton under fire. He said, what? Yeah, Craig Carton, a longtime radio gas bag, who's just doing TV now because he's making like $1 million a year. Good job by him. But anyway, Craig Carton was talking about the Cowboys, Dak Prescott. This is earlier in the day, prior to the Cowboys game, which Dallas did win. They beat Seattle in the Thursday night game. But the issue of Dak Prescott becoming a father came up. Prescott and his girlfriend announced last week that the couple would be welcoming in a baby daughter to the world. And Craig Carton was opining about this, and he said that Dak Prescott becoming a father, he indicated that not married and having a kid is a mistake and a, quote, terrible decision. He questioned if Dak's girlfriend is a gold digger, and that went over very well, unless it didn't. But it is an interesting conversation. The general wide-angle lens on this, is Dak Prescott's pending baby coming into the world here a terrible distraction for the Cowboys season? So, methinks the baby thing actually pretty normal. I've been at this for a while. Not that I know anything. I just do the overnight show. But these are young people in their 20s and 30s. And if you look at the cycle of life, right, the circle of life, that's normally the time in your 20s and 30s when you're procreating and you are creating spawns. That's normally when you're very fertile and you're enjoying the fruits of your labor and your celebrity and all that. And while Craig Carton certainly pushed the envelope, which does make for good radio, good television, it's not a mistake. I mean, I go that far, but I would tell you the process of an Iowa farmer, where they have to go out, they have to plant the seeds, and then they have to wait for the harvest. And that's kind of the way I look at this. Like, this is a built-in excuse when inevitably Dak Prescott, who's the epitome of El Stinko in big games, goes out there and lays an egg. And there'll be somebody, bleeding heart blogger or columnist, that will write and say, well, Dak was distracted, but it's okay because he's going to be a daddy. And that's all right. That's more important. And they'll just brush aside the fact that he went out there and played like a total turd burger in a playoff game for the Cowboys. So he's got that built-in excuse. Because in reality, the whole distraction thing, you have to be able to compartmentalize in any job, in anything in life, whether you're a truck driver and you're having a child or whether you're quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, as for the gold digger line, some people very offended by that. I don't even think that's outrageous. And I'll tell you why. There are plenty of examples of baby mama drama among professional athletes and women who they stoop and baby pops out and then they end up, they have a falling out and it's cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. It's 18 years of amazing payments every month. And so that does happen all the time. I don't know. Maybe they're lovebirds. They love each other. Who knows? I mean, I hope they do. But you never know. All right, final thought. So I had an email from Ron from Oakland. And I thought I would address this. I could have done this later in the hour, but I thought I'd do this right now. So Ron listens to the show, and God bless him. He did say he watches Benny versus the Penny. So thank you times 2. He did not say he listens to the Fifth Hour podcast, so I won't thank him times 3. But anyway, this guy Ron sent in. He was listening to the Colin Cowherd show, and he wanted my opinion on something that Cowherd had said about the Brock Purdy. And I did not hear this live. Ron sent me a clip from the interweb of our colleague here at Fox Sports Radio, Cowherd, who was praising, I'll just give you the thumbnail recap. So he was praising Jalen Hurts, celebrating Jalen Hurts for the way he deals with the media. Claimed he was professional and manicured. But, of course, the main point Cowherd made was he had his hat on facing forward. And then there was a clip of Brock Purdy who had his hat on backwards, which is a major pet peeve of Cowherd. And he then went on to say that he wants his quarterbacks, according to Ron, what he sent me, the quarterbacks to be adults. He implied that Brock Purdy was like a frat boy because he wears his hat backwards at news conferences and whatever. So, real quick, should 49er quarterback Brock Purdy be downgraded because of his fashion choices? So I'm going to shake my head no on this. Brock Purdy is the greatest system quarterback of this generation, of the modern NFL. He's also a kid. I didn't meet Brock Purdy, but we did cross in the hallways at Radio Row before the Super Bowl earlier this year. And Brock Purdy, I call him the baby-faced assassin because he looked like he was 12 years old. And I'm walking, and it was actually Doug Gottlieb who said, "Can you believe that's Brock Purdy?" And I said, "Who are you talking about?" And then he pointed, and I was like, "What?" I guess he was on Gottlieb's show. And so I was like, "Wow, you're kidding me." Good for him. So, yeah, I mean, he's a long, young-looking guy. But, this Colin Cowherd, he's the headliner. He's the big kahuna around here. He's the big ragu and all that. But on this one, he's a Meshuggah, and he's peddling Michigas, as my grandfather would say, because this is just his issue and his weak spot and all that.